The year is 1968. The place a nameless steaming jungle in Southeast Asia, a labyrinth of emerald green and suffocating heat. Private First Class Thomas "Tommy" Miller, just 19 years old, was a whisper of a man in a world of thunder. He carried a rifle that felt too heavy, a helmet that felt too large, and a secret fear that felt too real. On April 17th, during a routine patrol near the Laotian border, his world imploded. A sudden ambush, a cacophony of gunfire, the screams of his comrades. When the smoke cleared, Tommy was gone. Vanished, swallowed by the impenetrable jungle. His unit searched, frantically, desperately, but found nothing. Just the lingering scent of cordite and the chilling silence that followed. For decades, Thomas Miller became a name whispered among veterans, a ghost in the annals of a forgotten war. Was he captured? Was he killed? Was he simply lost? His fate remained an open wound, a mystery that haunted his family and the few remaining members of his platoon. This is not just a story of war, but a story of disappearance, of relentless pursuit, and of a truth hidden for far too long. If you're intrigued by stories of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring human spirit, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss the revelations that unfold. The official report, filed days after the ambush, painted a stark picture. PFC Thomas Miller, presumed KIA, body unrecoverable. Presumed. That single word, hanging. Heavy in the air, was both a small comfort and a crushing burden for his family. His mother, Clara Miller, a stoic woman with eyes that held the weight of the world, refused to accept it. "My Tommy is alive," she would declare, her voice trembling but firm. "I feel it in my bones." This unwavering conviction, fueled by a mother's love, would become the unlikely catalyst for a decades-long quest. The military, bogged down in the quagmire of Vietnam, had little time for individual disappearances. Resources were stretched thin, and the focus was on the living, on the battles yet to be fought. Tommy Miller became a statistic, another name on a growing list of the missing. But for Clara, he was her son. The ambush itself was a chaotic blur, pieced together from the fragmented memories of the survivors. Sergeant Frank Riley, Tommy's squad leader, recalled the suddenness of it. "One minute we were moving through the thick undergrowth. The next, hell broke loose. Tracer fire everywhere. I saw Miller go down near a cluster of bamboo. I tried to get to him, but the fire was too heavy. We were completely overrun." Riley, a hardened veteran, carried the guilt of that day like a physical burden. He believed Tommy was dead, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. "No body, no closure," he'd often say. "That's the worst kind of wound." The official search, initiated by Riley and his remaining squad members, lasted only 72 hours. The area was deemed too dangerous, the enemy presence too strong. Orders came down: retreat and regroup. Tommy Miller was left behind. Back home in a quiet suburban town in Ohio, Clara Miller began her own investigation. She wrote letters, hundreds of them, to every military official she could find, to congressmen, senators, even the president. Her handwriting, initially neat and precise, grew increasingly frantic, smudged with tears. She collected newspaper clippings, pored over maps of Southeast Asia, trying to visualize the terrain where her son had vanished. She learned about the Ho Chi Minh Trail, about the dense triple canopy jungle, about the myriad dangers that lurked within. She became an amateur expert on the region, driven by an almost obsessive need to understand. Her husband, Arthur, a quiet factory worker, supported her silently, his own grief a heavy cloak he wore constantly. He would sit beside her as she typed, offering a comforting hand, a silent affirmation of their shared burden. Years turned into decades. The Vietnam War ended, a bitter scar on the American psyche. Prisoners of war, or POWs, returned home, their stories a mix of triumph and tragedy. But Thomas Miller was not among them. His name was not on any list of returning soldiers. The government declared him officially dead in 1978, 10 years after his disappearance, For Clara, this declaration was a betrayal. "They gave up on him," she railed, her voice raw with indignation. "But I never will." She joined support groups for families of POW MIAs, her resolve strengthened by the shared pain of others. She attended rallies, wore the ubiquitous black and white POW MIA bracelet with Tommy's name etched on it, and spoke passionately about the need to account for every missing soldier. A crucial turning point came in 1985. A retired Army intelligence officer, Colonel James Sterling, who had served in Vietnam and harbored a deep respect for the missing, stumbled upon Tommy Miller's file. Sterling, disillusioned by the military's handling of many MIA cases, had dedicated his retirement to privately investigating unresolved disappearances. He was drawn to Miller's case by a small, seemingly insignificant detail: a single, unverified report from a local villager, filed months after the ambush, claiming to have seen an American soldier wounded but alive, being led away by Pathet Lao forces. This report had been dismissed as unreliable at the time, lost in the overwhelming tide of information and disinformation. But Sterling, with his keen eye for anomalies, saw it as a potential thread, a fragile lifeline to the truth. Sterling contacted Clara Miller. Their first conversation was cautious, Clara wary of yet another false hope, Sterling acutely aware of the emotional toll such investigations took on families. But as Sterling meticulously laid out his findings, the fragments of information he had unearthed, Clara felt a flicker of hope, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Sterling explained his methodology, his network of contacts in Southeast Asia, his commitment to verifiable facts. He emphasized the difficulty, the slim odds, but also the possibility. Clara, recognizing the sincerity in his voice, agreed to collaborate. She provided him with every letter, every document, every scrap of information she had meticulously collected over the years. This partnership, forged in shared determination, would become the engine of their complex quest. Sterling's investigation began in earnest. He traveled to Laos, a country still scarred by war, still wary of outsiders. He navigated bureaucratic obstacles, bribed local officials, and painstakingly interviewed elderly villagers, former Pathet Lao fighters, and anyone who might have tangential knowledge of the events of April 1968. The jungle had reclaimed many of the battle sites, swallowing evidence whole. Memories were faded, distorted by time and trauma. Yet, Sterling persisted. He used satellite imagery to pinpoint the approximate location of the ambush, cross-referenced historical military maps with contemporary geopolitical boundaries, and slowly, painstakingly, began to reconstruct the timeline. He focused on the unverified villager report, searching for anyone who might corroborate it. One evening, in a remote village nestled deep within the jungle, Sterling found an elderly woman named May. She had been a young girl in 1968, living with her family near the area of the ambush. May, her face etched with the wisdom of years, remembered the day, vividly. She recalled the sounds of battle, the fear that gripped her village, and then she remembered seeing them, a group of Pathet Lao soldiers, leading a tall, fair-skinned man, his arm crudely bandaged, his head bowed. "He looked tired," she whispered, her eyes distant, but he was walking. May's testimony, though decades old, was a powerful corroboration of the earlier dismissed report. It was the first concrete piece of evidence that Thomas Miller had indeed survived the ambush. Sterling, armed with May's testimony, returned to the archives, digging deeper into Pathet Lao movements in the region during that specific period. He discovered intelligence reports, previously overlooked, detailing the establishment of a small temporary POW camp further north, near the border with North Vietnam. This camp, codenamed Phoenix Nest, was believed to have held a handful of American prisoners for a brief period before they were transferred to larger, more permanent facilities. Could Tommy have been one of them? The possibility, though remote, ignited a new surge of hope. Sterling knew he was chasing a ghost, but this ghost was beginning to take on a more defined shape. He shared his findings with Clara, who listened with bated breath, her heart a drum against her ribs. The next phase of the investigation was even more challenging. Accessing information about Pathet Lao POW camps was notoriously difficult. Many records were destroyed, others remained classified, and the political landscape was still complex. Sterling employed a network of local fixers and researchers, people with deep roots in the community and an understanding of the subtle nuances of local politics. He understood that direct confrontation was futile. Persuasion and patience were key. He focused on tracing the potential movements of prisoners from Phoenix Nest. He knew that if Tommy had been held there, he would have eventually been moved. The question was, where? A former Pathet Lao officer, now an elderly ailing man living in a quiet village, proved to be another crucial link. Under the condition of anonymity, and with the promise of medical aid for his family, he agreed to speak with Sterling. He had been a junior officer at the time, responsible for transporting prisoners. He remembered Phoenix Nest and confirmed its existence. He also remembered a specific transfer, a group of 4 American prisoners, moved north in late 1968. He couldn't recall names, only faces, but his description of one of the prisoners, a young man with distinctively light hair and a slight limp, resonated with Tommy Miller's known characteristics. Tommy had sustained a minor leg injury during training, which sometimes caused him to limp when tired. The officer also mentioned the destination, a larger camp known as Black Serpent, notorious for its harsh conditions. Black Serpent was a name that sent a chill down Sterling's spine. It was known as a transit camp, a place where prisoners were interrogated, often brutally, before being sent deeper into the North Vietnamese system. The survival rate for prisoners at Black Serpent was low. Sterling braced himself for the worst. He knew this information would be devastating for Clara, but he was committed to the truth, however painful it might be. He contacted Clara, his voice somber as he relayed the new findings. Clara listened in silence, a single tear tracing a path down her wrinkled cheek. "At least we know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "At least we know he fought." Her hope, though tempered by the grim reality, had not vanished entirely. Knowing he had been captured, knowing he had endured, was a strange form of solace. Sterling's focus shifted to Black Serpent. He knew that if Tommy had been there, there would be records, however sparse, however fragmented. He collaborated with a Vietnamese historical society, leveraging their access to declassified documents and their knowledge of the Moi complex political history. The search was like sifting through sand for grains of gold. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The leads were often dead ends, the information contradictory, the memories unreliable. But Sterling's persistence was unwavering. He believed that somewhere buried in the bureaucratic labyrinth of a long-past war lay the definitive answer. Finally, after nearly 2 years of relentless investigation, a breakthrough, a faded handwritten ledger discovered in a dusty archive in Hanoi, contained a list of prisoners who had passed through Black Serpent in late 1968. Among the names, almost illegible, was Miller, T., and next to it, a date, December 12th, 1968, and a destination, Camp 5B. This was it. This was the first official documented proof of Thomas Miller's captivity. The emotional impact on Clara was profound. 50 years after he vanished, her son was no longer just missing. He was a POW. He had a story. Camp 5B was a notorious North Vietnamese POW camp, known for its isolation and the harsh conditions endured by its prisoners. It was located deep within the jungle, far from any major population centers, designed to be difficult to find and even harder to escape. Sterling knew that tracing Tommy's movements within Camp 5B would be incredibly difficult. Most American prisoners held there had been released during Operation Homecoming in 1973. If Tommy had survived until then, he should have been among them. The fact that he wasn't was a chilling indication that his story had taken a different, more tragic turn. Sterling began contacting former American POWs who had been held at Camp 5B. He knew that their collective memories, even fragmented, could paint a picture of daily life, of the conditions and perhaps of the fate of specific individuals. He spoke with dozens of veterans, their voices still carrying the echoes of trauma. Many remembered the faces, the names, the shared suffering. But no one, initially, remembered a Thomas Miller. The camp was large, the prisoners often isolated, and memory, after decades, could be notoriously unreliable. Then, a chance encounter. Sterling was speaking at a veterans conference, sharing the story of his search for Thomas Miller, when an elderly man in the audience, his face etched with deep scars, approached him. His name was Robert "Bobby" Johnson, and he had been a POW at Camp 5B from 1969 to 1973. Johnson listened intently as Sterling described Tommy Miller. "Light hair, slight limp?" Johnson asked, his voice raspy. Sterling nodded, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. "I remember a guy like that," Johnson continued, his eyes distant. "He arrived late '68, early '69, kept to himself mostly. Quiet, always drawing." Drawing. Clara had always said Tommy loved to draw. He would spend hours sketching in his notebook, filling pages with detailed landscapes and portraits. This detail, seemingly insignificant, was a powerful confirmation. Johnson went on to describe the man, whom he knew only as Tom, as resilient, despite the brutal conditions. He remembered Tom sharing his meager rations, offering encouragement to fellow prisoners, and always sketching. He'd draw on anything he could find, Johnson recalled. Scraps of paper, even the dirt floor with a stick. Said it kept him sane. Johnson's testimony was invaluable. It not only confirmed Tommy's presence at Camp 5B, but also provided a glimpse into his character during captivity. It showed that he had not broken, that he had held on to a piece of himself, even in the darkest of circumstances. But Johnson's next revelation was devastating. "Tom got sick," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Malaria. Bad. The guards, they didn't care. No medicine. He just faded." Johnson remembered the day Tom died sometime in late 1970. He remembered the guards taking his body away to a shallow, unmarked grave somewhere in the jungle surrounding the camp. "We held a silent vigil for him," Johnson said, a tear rolling down his weathered cheek. "We never forgot him." The details were agonizing, but they were the truth Clara had sought for so long. Tommy had not been forgotten by his fellow prisoners. He had fought, he had endured, and he had died with dignity. Sterling carefully documented Johnson's testimony, cross-referencing it with other POW accounts and available records. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place, forming a complete, albeit heartbreaking picture. He gathered all the evidence. May's testimony, the former Pathet Lao officer's account, the Black Serpent ledger, and Bobby Johnson's vivid recollections. The narrative was clear. Thomas Miller, captured in April 1968, had been held at Phoenix Nest, then transferred to Black Serpent, and finally to Camp 5B, where he succumbed to disease in late 1970. Sterling presented his findings to the Defense POW Accounting Agency, DPAA, the official government agency responsible for recovering and identifying missing personnel. The DPAA, known for its meticulous and often slow processes, reviewed Sterling's comprehensive report with unusual speed. The evidence was irrefutable. After decades of being listed as presumed KIA, Thomas Miller's status was officially changed to died in captivity. This bureaucratic change, though seemingly small, was monumental for Clara. It was an acknowledgement, a validation of her unwavering belief, and a testament to her son's sacrifice. The next step was the most difficult, finding Tommy's remains. Armed with Bobby Johnson's approximate description of the burial site and Sterling's detailed maps of Camp 5B, a DPAA recovery team was dispatched to Laos. The jungle, however, had done its work. The camp had been abandoned for decades, its structures reclaimed by the relentless growth. The area where Johnson remembered the graves was now a dense thicket, indistinguishable from the surrounding wilderness. The search was arduous, painstaking, and often disheartening. The team used ground-penetrating radar, conducted systematic excavations, and relied on the expertise of local guides who knew the terrain intimately. Months passed. The recovery team, facing monsoon rains, venomous snakes, and debilitating heat, refused to give up. They understood the significance of their mission, not just for Clara Miller, but for all families of the missing. Then, one sweltering afternoon, a discovery. A small, fragmented bone, barely visible beneath layers of earth and roots. Further excavation revealed more remains, carefully interred in a shallow grave. Among the sparse personal effects found near the remains was a tarnished metal dog tag, almost illegible, but with enough faint etching to reveal the name. Miller, T. It was him. After 52 years, Thomas Miller had been found. The journey home for Thomas Miller was a solemn one. His remains were transported to the DPAA laboratory in Hawaii for forensic identification. DNA analysis comparing samples from the recovered remains with samples provided by Clara and Arthur Miller years earlier confirmed the identification with 99.9% certainty. The phone call to Clara, informing her that her son had been found and identified, was perhaps the most profound moment of her life. Tears, long held back, flowed freely. It was a mix of overwhelming grief and profound relief. Her Tommy was coming home. A military funeral was held in his hometown, decades after he was presumed dead. Clara, now frail but with an inner strength that belied her age, stood beside Arthur, watching as the flag-draped coffin was lowered into the ground. Sergeant Frank Riley, now an old man with a cane, was there, his eyes moist. Bobby Johnson, his health failing, made the journey to pay his respects to the quiet artist he had known in captivity. Colonel James Sterling, his mission accomplished, stood proudly, a silent guardian of the truth. Thomas Miller was finally laid to rest, his name etched not just on a tombstone, but in the hearts of those who had fought for his memory. The story of Thomas Miller is more than just a tale of a soldier lost and found. It is a testament to the unwavering power of a mother's love, the relentless dedication of individuals like Colonel Sterling, and the enduring bond between soldiers. It reminds us that even in the chaos of war, individual lives matter, and no one should truly be forgotten. His journey from a nameless jungle to a hero's grave underscores the painful reality of war, and the tireless efforts of those who seek to bring closure to its lingering wounds. It also serves as a poignant reminder that while wars may end, their echoes resonate for generations, demanding that we never cease our search for the missing and never forget the sacrifices made. The mystery of Thomas Miller was solved, but the questions of war, of loss, and of remembrance continue to echo. This incredible journey of discovery fueled by unbreakable resolve reminds us that some mysteries are worth pursuing no matter how long it takes. Every soldier, every person, deserves to be accounted for, to have their story told. If Thomas Miller's story has moved you, if you believe in the power of truth and the importance of remembrance, then please consider subscribing to our channel. Hit that like button if this video resonated with you, and share it with someone who needs to hear this powerful tale. Your support helps us continue to uncover and share these vital narratives from history. What other untold stories of courage and perseverance do you think deserve to be brought to light? Let us know in the comments below. The lingering echoes of war, as the narrator so aptly put it, often manifest in ways we least expect, long after the last shot is fired. The story of Thomas Miller, while brought to a poignant close, opens a wider lens onto the myriad challenges faced by families and nations grappling with the aftermath of conflict. It compels us to consider not just the recovery of remains, but the recovery of identity, the mending of fractured histories, and the ongoing psychological and societal reverberations of war. Consider the notion of identity, not just for the fallen but for those left behind. For decades, Thomas Miller was a phantom, a name whispered in hushed tones, a photograph fading with time. His mother, Clara, carried the weight of an unfulfilled narrative, a son lost to the jungle's maw. Her identity, inextricably linked to his, was incomplete. The discovery of his remains, the scientific validation of his identity, was not merely a biological confirmation, it was a psychological and spiritual reclamation. It allowed Clara, even in her later years, to finally articulate a complete story for her son, to place him firmly within the lineage of their family, and to find a measure of peace that had eluded her for so long. This struggle for identity is a common thread in post-conflict societies where countless individuals remain unaccounted for, leaving families in a perpetual state of limbo, unable to fully mourn, unable to fully move forward. The emotional toll of this ambiguity is immeasurable, often leading to intergenerational trauma that perpetuates suffering long after peace treaties are signed. Moreover, Miller's story highlights the evolution of forensic science and its increasingly vital role in resolving these historical mysteries. The initial efforts to identify remains during and immediately after conflicts were often rudimentary, relying on dental records, personal effects, or eyewitness accounts, methods prone to error and often insufficient in the face of widespread casualties. The sheer scale of loss in conflicts like Vietnam meant that many soldiers were simply listed as MIA, missing in action, or KIA, killed in action, without definitive identification. Over the decades, however, advancements in DNA profiling, isotopic analysis, and anthropological techniques have revolutionized the field. The ability to extract and analyze degraded DNA from bone fragments, to trace geographical origins through isotopic signatures in teeth, and to reconstruct facial features from skeletal remains has transformed the impossible into the achievable. This scientific progress offers a renewed sense of hope for thousands of families still searching for answers, providing a tangible pathway to closure that was unimaginable in previous generations. The dedicated teams of forensic anthropologists, archaeologists, and geneticists who work tirelessly in this field are the unsung heroes of remembrance, meticulously piecing together fragments of lives to restore dignity to the fallen and peace to their loved ones. The political and diplomatic dimensions of recovering the missing are also profoundly complex. The ability to conduct search and recovery operations in former conflict zones often hinges on the establishment of stable political relations between former adversaries. In the case of Vietnam, years of diplomatic efforts were required to facilitate the access necessary for American teams to search for their missing. This process is rarely straightforward, often fraught with political sensitivities, logistical hurdles, and the lingering mistrust that can persist long after official hostilities cease. The cooperation between nations, sometimes decades after the fact, to recover and identify remains is a powerful, albeit often understated, form of reconciliation. It acknowledges a shared humanity that transcends past grievances and recognizes the universal desire for human dignity and closure. These collaborative efforts, often spearheaded by organizations like the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA in the United States, serve not only to bring individual soldiers home, but also to foster greater understanding and cooperation on a broader international scale. Beyond the individual story, Thomas Miller's case is a microcosm of a larger societal responsibility, the imperative to remember. Memorials, museums, and educational initiatives play a crucial role in ensuring that the sacrifices made are not forgotten and that the lessons learned from conflict are passed down through generations. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., for example, with its stark, black granite walls etched with the names of over 58,000 fallen soldiers, is a powerful testament to collective remembrance. Each name represents a life, a family, a story. The act of tracing a name on the wall, or leaving a memento, is a deeply personal form of connection to the past. The ongoing efforts to identify and repatriate missing soldiers reinforce the idea that a nation's commitment to its service members extends beyond the battlefield and into eternity. This commitment is fundamental to maintaining trust between the military and society, assuring those who serve that their ultimate sacrifice will not be in vain and that their memory will be honored. The emotional landscape surrounding the return of remains, even decades later, is incredibly complex. For families, it can trigger a renewed wave of grief, but often, it's a grief accompanied by profound relief and a sense of completeness. The long-awaited confirmation allows for proper burial, a physical place to visit, and a final farewell that was previously denied. For some survivors, like Bobby Johnson, who carried the burden of witnessing Miller's final moments, the repatriation offers a form of absolution. It validates their memories, confirms the truth of their experiences, and allows them to finally lay to rest, not just a fallen comrade, but also a piece of their own past trauma. The act of attending Miller's funeral, even as an old man, was a pilgrimage of healing for Johnson, a final salute to a bond forged in the crucible of war. The role of media, as exemplified by the very narrative we are exploring, is also critical in keeping these stories alive and ensuring they reach a wider audience. Documentaries, news reports, and online platforms serve as powerful conduits for remembrance, transforming individual stories into universal lessons. By sharing the arduous journey of discovery, the painstaking scientific process, and the profound emotional impact, these stories move beyond mere historical facts and become deeply human narratives. They foster empathy, educate the public about the true costs of war, and inspire continued support for initiatives dedicated to finding the missing. The call to subscribe, like, and share at the end of the previous segment is not just a digital plea. It's an invitation to participate in this ongoing act of remembrance, to become part of a community that values truth, courage, and the enduring power of human connection. Let's delve deeper into the specific challenges faced by organizations like the DPAA. Their mission is not merely to find bones, it's to find stories. Each recovery operation is a meticulous archaeological excavation, often conducted in remote, challenging environments. Imagine the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, where the elements conspire to reclaim all traces of human presence. Teams must contend with unexploded ordnance, treacherous terrain, endemic diseases, and the sheer passage of time, which ceases pathways and shifts landscapes. The initial intelligence gathering is paramount, scouring old military records, interviewing our veterans who might recall specific crash sites or burial locations, and analyzing aerial photographs. This historical detective work is often the first, most crucial step. Once a potential site is identified, the physical work begins. This involves careful excavation, often with hand tools, sifting through soil centimeter by centimeter, searching for the smallest fragments of bone, a tooth, a piece of uniform, or even a dog tag. Each artifact, no matter how small, is a clue, a piece of the puzzle that helps reconstruct the identity and circumstances of the fallen. The ethical considerations surrounding these recoveries are also significant. When remains are found, they must be treated with the utmost respect and dignity. The process involves not only scientific rigor, but also a profound reverence for the deceased. This extends to cultural sensitivities in the host countries, ensuring that recovery operations are conducted in a manner that respects local customs and traditions. The return of remains to their home country is often accompanied by solemn military honors, a fitting tribute to those who sacrificed everything. Consider the ripple effect of one such recovery. Thomas Miller's story didn't just bring closure to his mother, it became a beacon of hope for other families. When news spreads that a soldier missing for decades has been identified and returned, it reignites the flickering flame of hope for others. It validates their persistent belief that their loved one, too, might one day be found. This collective hope is a powerful motivator for continued efforts, fueling the resolve of researchers, policymakers, and families alike. The narrative also subtly touches upon the psychological burden carried by those who witnessed the horrors of war. Bobby Johnson, as a young man, was forced to confront the brutal reality of death and loss. The image of his fallen comrade, Thomas Miller, likely haunted him for years. The inability to bring Miller home, to offer a proper burial, would have been an additional layer of unresolved grief. His journey to Miller's grave, his moist eyes, speak volumes about the enduring impact of those wartime experiences. It highlights the often invisible wounds of war, the psychological scars that persist long after physical wounds have healed. Providing closure for the fallen also offers a measure of healing for the survivors, allowing them to finally reconcile with their past. Colonel James Sterling, too, embodies a different kind of dedication. His mission, accomplished, speaks to a profound sense of duty and commitment. For individuals like Sterling, the pursuit of truth and the honoring of fallen soldiers becomes a lifelong vocation. It's not just a job, it's a moral imperative. His silent guardianship of the truth suggests a deep understanding of the importance of these narratives, not just for the families, but for the historical record itself. These individuals are the custodians of memory, ensuring that no sacrifice is truly forgotten. Their perseverance, often against significant odds and bureaucratic inertia, is a testament to the human spirit's capacity for unwavering dedication. The questions of war, of loss, and of remembrance continue to echo because they are fundamental to the human experience. War, in its essence, is a disruption of order, a violent shattering of lives and communities. Loss is its inevitable consequence, a wound that never fully heals, only scars over time. Remembrance is our collective effort to make sense of this chaos, to learn from it, and to honor those who bore its heaviest costs. Thomas Miller's story, therefore, is not just about a single soldier. It's a profound meditation on these universal themes. The story also serves as a potent reminder of the importance of individual agency and the power of persistence. Clara Miller's unwavering belief, despite decades of silence and official pronouncements, was the initial spark. Her refusal to accept missing as a final answer set in motion a chain of events that ultimately led to her son's homecoming. This underscores the power of a single individual's determination to challenge the status quo and to demand accountability. It's a testament to the idea that even in the face of insurmountable odds, hope and perseverance can yield extraordinary results. Let's consider other untold stories, as the narrator prompts. The sheer volume of unresolved cases from various conflicts around the globe is staggering. From the battlefields of World War I and II, where countless soldiers lie in unmarked graves, to more recent conflicts in the Middle East and Africa, the search for the missing is a global endeavor. Each conflict leaves behind its own unique set of challenges. In some regions, political instability or ongoing violence makes recovery operations impossible. In others, the natural environment has so thoroughly reclaimed the battlegrounds that finding any trace of human remains as akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. Yet, the work continues. Advances in technology, such as ground-penetrating radar and drone imagery, are increasingly being employed to locate potential grave sites. Historical research is becoming more sophisticated, leveraging digital archives and cross-referencing vast amounts of data to pinpoint locations with greater accuracy. The international community, through organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, plays a crucial role in facilitating information exchange and coordinating efforts across borders. These collective endeavors speak to a fundamental human impulse: to honor the dead, to provide solace to the living, and to ensure that every life, no matter how humble, is accounted for. The implications of these stories extend beyond the military context. They speak to the universal human need for closure in the face of loss. Whether it's a natural disaster, a crime, or a conflict, the inability to locate or identify a loved one leaves an open wound. The processes and technologies developed for military MIA cases are increasingly being applied in other contexts, offering hope to families searching for victims of other tragedies. This cross-pollination of knowledge and expertise further underscores the broader societal value of these efforts. The story of Thomas Miller, therefore, is not an endpoint, but a gateway. It invites us to reflect on the nature of memory, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring quest for truth. It challenges us to consider our own roles in remembering, in advocating for the forgotten, and in supporting the ongoing work of those who dedicate their lives to bringing closure to the lingering wounds of history. The call to action at the end of the previous segment, to subscribe, like, and share, is more than just a plea for engagement. It's an invitation to join a global conversation about remembrance, accountability, and the profound human cost of conflict. It's a reminder that while one mystery may be solved, countless others await our attention, demanding that we never cease our search for the missing and never forget the sacrifices made. The echoes of war indeed demand our perpetual vigilance and our unwavering commitment to ensuring that no one is truly forgotten. The pursuit of these stories is not about glorifying war. It is about humanizing its impact. It is about understanding that behind every statistic, every casualty, report, there is a person, a family, a life irrevocably altered. Thomas Miller's journey from a nameless jungle to a hero's grave is a powerful narrative precisely because it brings this abstract concept of war down to a deeply personal level. It forces us to confront the individual stories that make up the vast tapestry of human conflict. This commitment to accounting for every individual goes beyond a mere moral obligation. It is a foundational principle for any society that values human life. It ensures that those who serve, those who put their lives on the line for their country, know that they will not be abandoned, even in death. This assurance fosters morale, strengthens military cohesion, and reinforces the sacred trust between a nation and its defenders. The emotional weight carried by a nation that has failed to account for its missing is significant, and the diligent pursuit of answers serves to alleviate that collective burden. Moreover, the process of identifying and repatriating remains can also offer valuable historical insights. The forensic analysis of skeletal remains can reveal information about the conditions soldiers endured, their diets, injuries, and even the specific circumstances of their death. This data, when aggregated, contributes to a more complete and nuanced understanding of historical conflicts, informing future military training, medical care, and strategic planning. It transforms individual tragedies into collective lessons, ensuring that the sacrifices of the past contribute to a safer future. The unwavering power of a mother's love is often the catalyst in these long searches. Clara Miller's unwavering belief in her son's return, even if only in spirit, is a testament to the primal bond between parent and child. This love transcends time, distance, and even death. It is this fundamental human connection that often sustains the pursuit of truth for decades, when all other avenues seem exhausted. Her relentless pursuit, her refusal to let her son become just another name on a list, is a powerful reminder that love can be a force for profound change and justice. Ultimately, the story of Thomas Miller, and countless others like his, is a profound affirmation of human dignity. It asserts that every life has value, and that even in the most chaotic and brutal circumstances, the individual deserves to be remembered, honored, and brought home. It is a story that, despite its specific historical context, resonates with universal truths about loss, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. And as long as these echoes of war continue to resonate, the search for the missing, the telling of their stories, and the act of remembrance will remain an essential part of our collective human endeavor.